We have our second audio question ever in. You'll remember a few sods back, that's episodes, I shortened it. George Russell asked DC a question about hidden talents. Well, today, Miles from Birmingham wants to know...
Hi Steve, my name is Miles and I'm 12 years old. I love Formula 1 and I love On the Marbles. So when I grow up, I want to be a great racing driver like DC. Or a really uber cool Formula 1 TV presenter like Jay Humphrey. Anyway, I want to ask DC, how much do you need to drink during a race? And what happens if you suddenly need a wee or a poo?
Ooh, the JK thing was interesting. Touchy.
Great question. I mean, sullied somewhat by the Jake Humphreys quip. Shots fired, eh? That's Miles from Birmingham, who's 12 years old. Really, Miles? You're throwing grenades at... DC, let me address this for a second, okay? Really, Miles? You're throwing grenades into the show like that, stirring up beef? You a beef stirrer? Let me tell you something, Miles. You see me coming down the street, you want to see 13? You better cross to the other side. I will do time for you. Long time. I'll go to prison. I'll come out after 20 years and do some Cape Fear shit on you. You hear me? Next time you hear this podcast, it'll be as evidence in court. You don't know who you're messing with. You can't intimidate me, Miles. I'm the Hannibal Lecter of the podcast world, okay? I'll eat your toenails. You get me? Anyway, thanks for the question, Miles. Really appreciate it. DC, you know, what happens mid-Grand Prix if you need a pee or a poo? Obviously, Mark, weigh in as well.
Well, never number two has ever crossed my mind because it's part of your race preparation to make sure that you make the race weight. So you don't want to be carrying anything around. You know, there's lots of different industries. Lots of different industries where
poo in your belly, Steve.
Well, no, of course not. Of course not. And you know, certainly from my point of view, adrenaline and fear is a great laxative. So we never have a problem to empty one's bowels. PP, I only ever peed once in the car, and that was the year that Panis broke his leg in Montreal. Montreal was a surprisingly difficult race for dehydration when it was hot. And so you really took on a lot of, I would take like 5 litres of fluid from waking up until the race start. And under the safety car, I was bursting on a pee, and I just had to let go. But it's much more difficult than you imagine, because even driving slowly, a Grand Prix car is still a hostile environment. So, let's put it this way, very difficult to pass wind in a race car, because that involves relaxing one's sphincter. And to do that, whilst you're trying to push the pedals and pull G, really difficult.
Wow.
So, I don't know about you, Mark.
This is really informative. I'm enjoying this a lot. I hope you are too, Miles. Go, Mark.
Yeah, buddy. Miles, thanks for the question, mate. From Birmingham there. Yeah, look, I think that if you're ever in a car, Miles, when you get your license, doing a long trip, and you need to have a piss in the car. I've done it once before, so DC, there's only one of us.
In a Formula 1 car?
No, of course. No, not in a street car. I don't just piss driving down the M25.
I mean, you can.
So both of us have weed in the car once in our careers, which is quite extraordinary given how much driving we did.
Once in the back of a taxi, but that was an accident.
Mine was 2009 Malaysian Grand Prix, and I just stuffed up the hydration in terms of, like DC said, we need to have a lot of fluid before the race. You want to try and time it so your bladder's pretty empty before the race, but naturally you still have a lot of hydration in your system.
A lot of humidity in Malaysia as well, if I remember correctly.
Humid.
You must have been just sitting in it for the rest of the race.
Humid. No. So, mate, I'm like lap 10 or 12, and I'm just going, because sometimes your mind, you feel it, but it's like, yeah, of course, you're pretty focused. You got a bit on, and then it'll just you don't need to do it. And I'm like, no, I've got to do this. So I go to the second last corner in Malaysia, and after that, there's 2 long straights. You've got a super long straight, and then you've got a really long, so down to a hairpin, and another long straight. So I thought, this is tactically, this is ridiculous. You think about how much effort you've got to think about how you're going to deploy, this sort of fluid. So I come out of the second last corner, I'm just on the straight going, mate, to wee in your own, like a pair of, sitting upright with your clothes on.
It goes against every natural
so
urge you
wrong.
have. Yeah.
It's so wrong. Anyway, so I'm weeing, and I thought, it'll be over. Mate, I was still busting by the next corner. I was nowhere, so I had to shut it down. Dun, 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 dun. Out of the next corner. Let it go again. We turn the wee off, turn 1, turn 2. Mate, because when you're absolutely busting for a piss. No one times how long it takes. You're there for a while. You just relax and it's a nice thing to do. But when you are under pressure, it takes forever. So finished the race. Everything had dried out by that point, and
oh my God,
rusty seatbelts.